Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for being here with us on an Independent Woman with Wine. Uh, the most important thing, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Pinot Noir right at the moment, and it doesn't look full, but trust me, it this glass can be underestimating.
I have a big ass glass too over here. And I love your glass. I love the little lines you have around. Super cute.
Thank you. You know what? I got it from the Miska collection, so they have ones with some of them have dots, some
Oh,
of them have like even smaller lines. They're all different.
I had on my very first podcast video, I have this glass with me that had little details on it, but that broke a couple of weeks ago. I was so sad because it was so pretty, but yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this with you. You have no idea how much I appreciate your time and being here and doing that. So, cheers to start a very nice conversation.
Cheers, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I am also drinking a Pinot Noir. I on my way back, I stopped at my liquor store and I grabbed a because I did not have a Pinot Noir at home. So I'm like, I want to have a Pinot Noir to match with you.
Oh, that's nice.
All right, so let's start. So can you tell us a little about your journey to becoming a business owner and what inspired you to start not just one, but two or three businesses, right?
Yes. So back in university, I went to school for urban planning, and at the time, I loved the field, but I didn't really like how things got handled. There's a lot of stuff that goes underneath the table sometimes. Not everything gets done the way that you wanted to, and I wanted control.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to have control, you got to do something in business. I read a book at the time called Invented Bank It Sell It by Lori Greiner, and she's one of the ladies on Shark Tank. And that book was she like paved the way for me. And from there, she in that book she said, find things around the house that you need to solve and you can invent and create. So she was talking about how she had like I think it was like 87 inventions at the time. And I created a makeup brush, went and got it filed. That was the beginning of my business era. Then from there, I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. Went back for a marketing degree. Happened to graduate smack middle in the pandemic. And what's the first thing that gets cut during the pandemic or during a recession? Marketing and HR. So if you can't find a job, you got to create a job. Went and created my own agency, had success with that. And then I noticed some small things within that space where people would come to me and say, hey, I need marketing. And I'm like, you don't. I'm like, I called you on Monday and it is Thursday now and you haven't returned my call. You've got high turnover, there's leadership issues. So that's how I got into Schoolie Mitchell. And
Mm-hmm.
Schoolie Mitchell is born where I help people save on expenses so they can invest in those other pieces to help them grow and scale. That's a bit about me.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So and you did the marketing in cosmetic industry, right? What was it like working in cosmetic marketing and how did that experience influence your path as an entrepreneur?
I would say each industry in marketing is very different because you have to remember that you're in the eyes of the consumer, not as a marketer. And sometimes we have to take ourselves out of that. So it's very interesting because you have to tell, and this is a lot of industries, but you have to tell stories. And when it comes to beauty, everyone gets sucked into it because the profit margins on it are 300%. Like Sephora is just printing money, you
Mm,
know? But it's different in the sense where in North America, and especially if you go to Latin America and Europe, there's a lot more emphasis towards it. And women I don't want to say like take more pride in themselves, but beauty is more of the center. So there's more funding and certain things like that towards it. So I would say between Latin America, North America, and Europe, The marketing was very different, but it was a unique experience, and especially launching the product.
Mhm. Wow, it sounds very interesting. Well, over 20 years ago, I worked in a skincare department at the big department store. I thought it was going to be the best job I ever had, and I ended up hating it. I did not like the customers.
You know what? It's tough. It's so I do some mystery shopping like on the side,
Mhm.
and I do a lot of luxury brands. And a lot of the things that they ask us to pinpoint, even people like yourself that would sell skincare, I would be so nervous. Like they want you to have like everything, every step point, every touch point. It's an experience and they can't leave unhappy. Like every customer, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking the first time that we talked, we said we're going to talk about a little bit about burnout, but I kind of expanded on that because I feel like burnout, it's almost everybody is burnout these days, you know. I was a teacher at a daycare for almost 10 years. I was beyond burnout when I left. I was just like, I can't. I don't get paid. I don't get paid at all. My car was falling apart. I couldn't afford internet. It was just horrible, you know. So, if it's okay with you, should we jump on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, given your experience, what are some of the earliest signs of burnout that people should look out for, especially when juggling multiple roles, which is, me right now, I probably have like three, four roles that I have to fill, and I know other ladies who have even more than that because I'm not a mom, but I am a wife, and I have two jobs and I am doing podcasts and all the stuff and selling all the stuff, trying to make that a little bit more, So, yeah.
I would say that when your body hurts or when your mind is telling you to take a break, do it. You're not going to the gym. You're not pushing this is a different kind of feeling. And when you're pushing yourself a little bit further in the gym, it's very different than pushing yourself in front of the computer. I've had times where I'm typing away at my computer, my hands start to burn. I said, "Oh, you know what? I just got to keep going. I got to finish this off." Because what happens is, as a start of a problem becomes even bigger. And if you don't deal with it ahead of time, you won't even be able to do anything at all. And that's happened to me before. I remember at one point too, when I was in the serving industry back in university, asked me to hold three plates right now in my left hand. It's not happening. I would say for another thing too, for people that are juggling a couple roles, and this is something I learned when if you're sitting down all day, you got to do some different motions. Or if you're serving all day and you're holding your fingers like this, where you've got three plates in there, it's in a couple of years you're gonna see a big difference. I would
Mhm.
say listen to your body and deal with it at hand. Now, what I would also say too is now, and you mentioned too, like, hey, you were working in daycare, like there's a lot of things going on. Some people may not be able to deal with that certain problem at that time. So, what I suggest and what I've done even now is go into the preventative side of things. So, for me, I block my time out. I go for walks. Nobody's allowed to bother me on my lunch break. Like, that's it. Going to the gym, eating properly. It's all about what you're feeding your brain in different ways. You know, I would even also say too, like even meditation, people are like, oh, like, meditations are for yogis. No, like it actually helps and it takes effort and practice. But once you get there, it's the mindfulness that helps you get throughout the day, and especially when you have multiple positions.
Yeah. I had a hard time with meditation. I still have, but every couple of days I do block like 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, not listening to anything, just me, myself, my thoughts. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I come out of those 5 minutes feeling a little bit better or a little bit worse, depending on the set of mind that I am that day. But for me, like today, I thought it was really important for me to take today. Like, I want to get my hair done. Like, I was so stressed out about. I usually don't stress out about stuff like that. Like I don't wear makeup, my hair usually is always on a bun, but I'm just like, I need that. I need that, So I did that and I feel pretty good right now. Of course, I mean, tomorrow's another day, problems of tomorrow, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'm just like, I'm happy, I'm proud, I'm feeling pretty, just little things that we do for ourselves that make us happy.
Absolutely. And that's part of it. I think sometimes too, we're always trying to make other people happy and we forget about ourselves. And we're just as important. You got to put your own mask on in an airplane before you help somebody else.
Yeah, and you got to be a little bit selfish because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anyone around you, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so handling burnout, what strategies have you found most effective in managing burnout? I guess you we just touched on that, right? Unless you want to expand on that.
I would say certain kinds of exercises too, like yoga really helps. And you talked about like good days and bad days, and especially with meditation. So not a lot of people I think know about this, but I'm in this course right now with a lot, it's called Alana's method. And when you do a lot of like heavy breathing or you're moving yourself in different ways, it's very healthy to actually exercise or move yourself in a different way. And after you're done, people will like literally people come out of this one particular class where they start crying. And they're not crying because, oh, like the workout was so hard. You carry emotion in you and tension in your muscles,
You're letting it
and
go.
people don't know how to release it. Yes, 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 yes. So when I went to her first class, I said, I'm not gonna cry. Like, what am I gonna cry about?
Hmm.
And that's part of like, I guess us being like independent women. I came out of this class, she's like, trust me, you're gonna need to come to tea time. I was at like tea time for like 6 weeks, just like, and after this class, just bawling my eyes out, and I just couldn't figure out why. But it's all that tension coming out.
Hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with the show Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yes, 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 yes.
That's what's her name? The wife, Patricia Hitton. I forgot her character's
Deborah.
Deborah, yeah, yeah. So that I remember to this day because it was so fun because I've done that, but it wasn't until I saw that episode that I'm like, I think that's what I need because she wanted a day for herself at home alone, and he wanted to know what is she doing. She goes and picking the window, and she's just like bawling. And she's like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" She's like, "I just needed that. I just needed to have some release." And sometimes a good cry it's the best way, And I'm like, I get that, At the time, this was over 20 years ago, probably, that I saw that episode for the first time. I didn't know that's what I was doing. So, unaware of it, I was already doing that, you know? So, yeah, a good cry, it's sometimes it's good. It helps.
And some people will mistaken that for I'm burning out, but it's part of the process. Like tomorrow, like because you released all that junk out of you, the next day, I find even for me, the next day, I'm like, oh, this is so refreshing. It's so nice. So I would also say don't mistake that sometimes for burnout.
Yeah. Hmm. Uh, yeah. So reality of burnout. Do you think burnout is more prevalent now in entrepreneurship, and why might that be the case? I don't think just entrepreneurs have burnout. I think honestly, almost everyone I talk to is going through that right now.
I think there's burnout and there's also patience as well. But I don't know what the stats are in the US, but in Canada, one in every three people have a side hustle on top of already what they're doing, whether that's entrepreneurship or not.
Like
And to
me,
get
I have my job, I have a hustle here, then another one, and another one, and another. It's like on top of each other.
exactly. So, I wouldn't say that it's just entrepreneurship, it's a lot of people in general. But what I like to say to myself every time I add something to my stack or I want to do something different, look at the opportunity cost before you get into that burnout level or that next step. Like what is really going to happen when I achieve that next step? Is this really going to help me? And sometimes you have to say to yourself, you know what? Is it really worth that extra $1,000?
Yeah.
But I find even now, like I saw a post like right before this. It was somebody in Detroit, like a family in Detroit on one income, a factory worker with no mortgage and a house. It's just completely different now. It's very, very different.
Yeah. In your experience, what are some less obvious signs of burnout that people might overlook? They don't like they don't see it. They don't they have the signs, but they're not, they're not as subtle as some.
Okay, so I'll tell you where I didn't see the signs because I didn't think they were that obvious until someone pointed it out to me. So I used to start with one coffee a day, and then I got to four. That's a first sign of burnout because you're needing that energy all day long. If you need four coffees all day long, there's an issue.
Yeah.
That's that. And then to top it all off, yes, one coffee is good for you, but then all the nutrients, like coffee does extract nutrients from whatever you're eating and drinking. And then on top of it, you do get dehydrated. So I'd say that's the first thing. Second thing is one thing that I ignored, and this is something I would say that there's preliminary studies on. So during the pandemic, I would have to go and take a nap in the middle of the afternoon. So when I was working I know this sounds so bad, but I would work for somebody and on my lunch break, I would put like I was in a meeting, but really I was taking a nap.
I did that. I did that. The pandemic. Because so coincidentally, my last day at the daycare was the last day they were open before the shutdown. And that was a Friday. The following Monday, I started a new job. So I didn't have a break. But it was a pandemic, shut down. So my schedule was different. So I was coming home around 1 p.m. Every single day, I was taking a nap until like 4 p.m., 5 p.m. And it was like, at some point, I was like, when are my naps are going to turn shorter? I'm like, I should be not as tired. But no, for the 3 months that I did that job, I slept every single afternoon.
Which is crazy because then you're like, okay, now and then after you finish these naps, you're like, okay, now I have energy, but why is that the case? So that's something that I overlooked. And then when after a while, we went back to the office and they're like, so just out of curiosity, no, and they're like, no one's in trouble here. How many of you guys took naps on your lunch break or used like a meeting time slot to take a nap? And all of us were just like, we put up our hands. But when you're on the computer 24/7, you're not running to the fax machine. And I feel like even this happens in myself. You have to feel like you're being over dramatic to get your point across as if they can't hear you. Versus in person, you're a little bit different and you don't use as much energy. And then there was a study, I can't remember if it was by KPMG or Deloitte, but it was, and people, because of this, they were having the naps and it was leading to burnout.
Wow.
I would say that's another sign that I've noticed. When your eyes can't look left to right, that was when I ended up in the hospital because I was burned out. That was also another case. And you think, oh, I just need to rest my eyes. No, no, no. If that doesn't happen often, that's because you're burnt out.
Wow. Yeah. How do you think the burnout impact creativity, especially in a creative field like cosmetic marketing? How did it affect your decision making as a business owner? Sorry. Just so you know, English is my second language, so
No worries, no worries. I would say in terms of my experiences there, and I would actually even just remove the word burnout, but when you're tired, you him and haw on decisions instead of making quick decisions. And that's what you should be doing in entrepreneurship. It's a yes or no question. Do you want to do this? Do you not want to do this? And when you're burnt out, everything just keeps getting put to the back end.
Mhm,
And then the net and again, like because you're tired from the day before, then it carries on to the next day and the next day. It's better just to say, hey, I can work these 5 hours. This is what I'm going to get done in these 5 hours, and that's it. So I would say yeah, it impacts decision making in that way. When it comes to creativity, I did not have any creativity at all. Like it was like non-existent. This is when like Chat GDP came in at the time, and thank God for that. But even when you're burnt out, you're not going to have creative things for social media and marketing and the drive to do anything. It's just I didn't want to do anything. I was like, peace out. Like I need vacation. And
mhm,
then when you get to that point, it's like, why are you in the office? Just
mhm.
go.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay, if someone is feeling overwhelmed but unsure if it's burnout, are there specifics, red flags they should be aware of?
If they get agitated, I would say that's a big one. I even ask them, like, if they're a little off edge or they're not paying attention or they're not focused. I'll even tell them, hey, like, I'll ask them, like, what's going on? And if I do find out like certain things are going on, I'm like, go take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, get out of here. I don't want to see you. Like, not that I don't want to see them,
Mm-hmm.
but just go take care of yourself. I've heard and I've been in offices where people have literally just put their head down and they've never woken up.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like the agitated, tired, not focused. And also if they start getting quiet and they're like, oh, keep saying like whatever to this or to whatever to that, there's something up, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Or if you're constantly thinking about the same problem over and over again, or for me, for example, like I remember at one point I kept hearing like the Teams meeting thing like keep going off and like like some of the other noises. I'm like, okay, I need a break. That's also like a sign too, like, okay, I hear the dinging, like that's enough.
Mm-hmm. But it also like speaking from personal experience, I knew for a couple of years before I left the school that I was burnout, that I needed to move on to something different, or I needed to take some time for myself. For a lot of people that I know that were in the same position as I was, actually still am, it's not like I realized like I need 2 days. So I'm going to call out because a lot of times you don't have an understanding boss. And if you work in a daycare setting, which in my time, which is before COVID, it was always short staff. So your boss is not going to be understanding while we're already missing somebody. I can, especially if you go, I am stressed out. I need a day. I need a half a day, whatever. They don't. And it's really, really it's hard, and without even realizing I was doing, I was searching, not searching, how can I put it, turning to alcohol. I would come home every single night and drink alcohol. I'm not talking like now, yes, I drink almost every night, but I have one glass, like regular glass, two at the most. I do not go to bed drunk. I'm not impaired or anything like that. I do have control over that now. But at that time, I was drinking a whole bottle and more at night before I went to bed because I was so tired, so stressed out that I needed all the alcohol I could get for me to start feeling some kind of relax, in a way for me. Okay, now I can go to bed and my mind is not going to be spinning or anything like that, Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people, speaking from my personal experience, but I know a lot of people go through that.
Absolutely. I remember when I was in the serving industry, there was a point where I also felt the same way, where not only did I feel overworked, I was overworking myself. And I think when you get into that position where you have a boss like that, just so that the list and all the listeners that are listening, that's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unsatisfied with, let's say, your salary and it's not a fair market value, or you're getting mistreated, or there's certain things that I wouldn't necessarily say are in compliance, but if they don't understand like the human elements, go find something else. I know that's kind of hard to say in the moment, like, okay, like, I gotta pay bills, pay your bills, keep quiet, but then on that Friday or whenever you have that day off, go apply for something else. You'd be surprised at what's better. It's like being in a relationship where you're like, that's all I've got, like, that's all I can do.
Because you don't think to go to look anywhere else.
Yes, yes. And then I remember listening to this one girl. She's called the New York Wall Street Girlie. So there's this Wall Street girlie that she's got her own Instagram channel, and she says people that stay at their job every year and don't get at least a 5% raise, you're not making what you should be making, because if inflation goes up 2% every year, and this year in Canada it's gone up 4%,
Mhm.
and then you got a 5% raise, they just gave you more work with more responsibilities, and technically your pay is more, but it's the same because of inflation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, all this inflation, I still making the same amount of money that I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And everything just went up.
Yeah. And then again, like this is where you're like, okay, I need a side hustle. And then all these side hustles compact, and then it's like, okay, there's this burnout.
Hmm.
So what I'm even saying here too is look at your current opportunity cost, or where you're currently at in that role. And I would say have the confidence to say, you know what, I can do this, and go see what else is out there. I'm not saying, hey, quit right on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go interview, see what else is out there. You don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard. For a couple of years before I left the school, I knew I needed to leave. I knew I needed to leave, but it was just, but then one day I just did. Like first week of January in 2020, I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta go. I need to find something else. I don't want to do anything behind anybody's back. Just so you know, I'm gonna look for something else. Some point I'm gonna come here. Here's my 2 weeks notice. So you're aware that I'm doing that. And I did. It took me about 3 months, but it paid off. I mean, it changed my life since I left. And when I left, I thought I was just gonna take a break, but now I'm like, no, and I don't want to go back because pay is not good at all, and they put so much pressure on you, and I feel for daycare all the teachers, but daycare teachers, they suffer. They need more appreciation. They need more money too, you know.
And then of course you get all the kids that are like they're germ balls. They just bring all the sickness in.
My gosh, yep. And then they get sick, the whole class gets sick. Let's not talk about the stomach bug, because one child have a stomach bug, everybody gets it. Everybody, the teachers, yeah, no matter. And yeah, you do not get paid for hazard. What is that that a hazard pay for, you know? Like you don't get paid for getting sick. You
Y-
should.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my, yeah. Um, so self-care has become a buzzword lately, you know, for us. But how I want to speak on a mind of the people like myself who live paycheck to paycheck, that kind of thing. It's a buzzword. How do we incorporate genuine, effective self-care to prevent burnout, but with for people with limited means? Do you know, you understand what I'm trying to ask you?
Yes. And I think self-care is different for everyone and it means something different for every individual being. That could be maybe sitting at home and doing your nails yourself, or even just going for a hike or a walk or walking through nature. You're in charge of your life. You decide what self-care means to you, how much time that you need to yourself. There's many different ways that people can do it, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can go to the a local like Korean skincare store and get like a $1 face mask and just sit there. Or we have wine in front of us right now, but maybe that's something different. Maybe it's instead of going to Starbucks, it's making your own turmeric latte or something like that. I think it's whatever you decide you want it to be. And it's all about how you set those boundaries within that certain time too. So
Mhm.
like for me, I right now have a closed sign on my door. So that means like no one can come in. Or when I'm doing something at certain times of the day, they know like not to bother me. And like that's my time.
Mhm.
So, it can mean I think many different things for different people. I think you see on like social media all the time or on YouTube like, "Oh, I went to get this massage and I got this like keratin treatment today and this $400 facial." Not everyone can do that, but you can look at the smaller steps or, maybe it's even doing your own makeup or just walking around the mall. Like there's so many different things you can do.
I used to love taking baths, you know. I would get those bath bomb from the dollar store, which I don't even know what it was doing to my skin, but I did. It was one of the things that I did, you know, for me to like wind down, like, you know, little things that we can do. It helps.
Exactly. You know what? Maybe it could be even lighting a candle or, putting some lavender in a diffuser.
Yep. Yeah. I've done that. I used to live by myself and I had like those candlestick and I put a candle on and I made this dish. I at the time I think I got a box from the Blue Apron box. So I made this really fancy dinner. Sat there at the table all by myself, drank my wine, ate that super fancy food that I made, you know. So, and I was like, yeah, that was good. But now I have too many people here. So life is different. Not complaining. The house is full, which is great, you know. But I miss those times sometimes, like my baths. But I do all the things that I try to make little things for myself that helps. Like today, I went to the hair salon.
Exactly, right? And it's not like you do that every day. You do it once in a blue moon and you're like, "You know what? I feel good about this."
Yep. Oh yeah, love what you did there. That was me. My brand new hair.
And you're like, "I can't do this at home."
I know. I'm like, I left then. I'm like, I almost hugged the hairdresser. I'm like, thank you so much. I love this. I love my nails. I love everything. If only I could do this weekly, that would be awesome.
If only.
Yeah.